Hey guys, welcome back to Vertical Momentum. I'm your host, Richard Kaufman, also known as the Comeback Coach. Guys, if you want to make crushing their last month of 2024 and then crush 2025, this episode is for you. My brother Craig is going to drop some knowledge bombs. We're going to be talking about health, fitness, mental health. We're going to be talking about entrepreneurship. This guy's done it all. He's the Swiss Army knife of positivity. Craig, my brother, welcome to the show.
Great. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
I love it. And I got to give a big shout out to Wyatt. Wyatt, thank you for hooking this up. I appreciate you, brother. So my first question, Craig, is, us growing up and we're getting a little bit older, we were talking a little bit about how AI, we got to learn AI now. What is your definition of resiliency?
Definition of resiliency. Mine is just kind of when you get knocked down, getting back up again and again and again. So it's just staying with it, leaning into it. As soon as you're knocked down, what did you learn? What are you going to do differently? How are you going to grow? Repeat, rinse again and again and again. So I've been knocked down a lot in life, but I just keep getting up again and again and again. And I believe the more you do that, you develop that resilience. It's developed over time. So when these things that when you first started out getting knocked down are kind of nothing. They're like a mosquito kind of buzzing around you. After a while, you just get kind of used to it. And you just develop it like developing a muscle. It's a mindset. And then you live by that mindset each and every day. And you just know entering something, you have the confidence in yourself to overcome it. And that's developed over time.
And I love it. And I got to give a big shout out. Celsius energy drink. Guys, if you love energy drinks, I'm not a coffee drinker, but I love Celsius. If you love energy drinks, check them out. They're everywhere. And they're sugar-free, which is a great thing. So, Craig, let's hop into DeLorean. Let's go way back. Tell me a little bit about where you come from and where'd you grow up?
Well, how far back do you want to go? We'll go like...
we can go way back.
So childhood, small town, East Coast, about 40 to 45,000 people. It was a tale of two cities. The town had like half the town was working class and the other half town was really very, very wealthy. We lived right on that fringe. My mom was a school teacher and my father was in retail. And just growing up, more working class family in a very affluent area. So that really kind of laid the foundation for a lot what I do today. It was a great upbringing. I had great parents. I always saw them struggle, though, in manners of they were happy, but we couldn't go to the country clubs. We didn't go on those ski trips or the Europe trips that the other kids went. You kind of learn that as you grow up. You're a little bit different than everyone else. And I just remember my father growing up always wanted to start his own business. And he always complained about his bosses and he never did. And that kind of stuck with me. As a kid and as his firstborn son, I always made a promise to him that I'd work for myself and not someone else going ahead in life. So that laid a lot of foundation to where I am today.
I know, I'm an East Coast boy. I'm in Jersey. So, and East Coast people, I think we have a little bit more of a grind mentality, a hustle mentality. So in high school, grade school, did you get the entrepreneurial spirit in back when you were that young?
Yeah, really, really young. I think elementary school. I remember my neighbor and myself used to put on plays, believe it or not. I used to have a singer's voice until I hit puberty. And then, so we put on plays in the neighborhood and was in a newspaper. So we went around, it's called Back to School. We did it like 3 straight years just for our neighborhood. So it started around 8 or 9 years old, lemonade stands, mowing lawns, raking leaves, shoveling driveways, newspapers. And that kind of grew into doing, I think it was in 8th grade, I had a whole landscaping business with a friend of mine. So it was always kind of that spirit started at an early age for myself.
Now your dad, work in retail because that's a rough business. Anybody that's ever worked retail, you work every holiday, you're working every weekend. So did dad take you into work sometimes and teach you to retail a little bit?
Yeah, he took me in a couple of times. He'd get called in if someone broke into the store. And I remember he took me into, it wasn't in the greatest neighborhood. It was in Bridgeport, Connecticut. If you're familiar with Bridgeport, Connecticut, I don't think that ever gentrified over the years. it's always been a little rough neighborhood. And he used to take me down as a kid and go, "Oh, we got to go in and check if a burglar's in here." So yeah, he brought me in at an early age into that type of atmosphere. So I did learn a lot from him, a lot of little tricks to the trade.
Now, did you go to college for business?
I went to college way, I was at this point in time on the West Coast, but way west of Connecticut. I grew up in Connecticut, so it was way west of Connecticut in the mountains in Boulder, Colorado. And it was more to experience a different culture. I want to experience a different view of the world than what I was grown up in this little kind of area of Connecticut. And I went through a couple of majors. I went to about 3 majors during that time period. I went from environmental law to political science to kinesiology. And along that path, I saw all my friends with business degrees. And this is University of Colorado is a very fun school. Those guys were up the latest at night and studied the least and got A's. I'm like, well, this is kind of, to me, I just kind of was always kind of aware, hey, I'm spending money on an education. I might as well spend money on an education that'll give me something of significance, not something that I could be up all night partying like everyone else, study for 2 hours and get an A and just go out in the real world with it. So that's when I decided, hey, let's stick with a science, something substantive that I can use later in life.
And my son's actually going to East Stroudsburg University, and he said his hardest class was anatomy and physiology and kinesiology. He's like, that just crushed him. He's like, that was some of the hardest classes he ever had to take.
Yeah, those were hard. And when they stick the cadavers in front of you, that's not a pleasant experience. Smelling like formaldehyde all day. That was interesting, seeing that stuff.
Now, did you get into business? Because a lot of people I've talked to that are successful in business today, they not only had hustles in high school, they had hustles in college. Did you were you a side hustler kind of guy?
I had hustles in a different way in college. So yeah, we had a lot of fun. I could say some of these things on the air. So we'd like get together and have these giant events, let's call them parties and stuff. And I was kind of the creator of a lot of that stuff. I was able to let's call it manifest the bands, all the beer, all the kegs, and all the people showing up. So I kind of had that natural gift to make things happen with a very low budget. I just was resourceful in how doing that. So it was always in my blood, putting on events. Then I got involved with some charities actually in college too, with inner city kids. That was a success. Did a bunch of those. So I was always had that entrepreneurial spirit that I was always successful at. I mean, at that point in time, it was college. It was fun. It was using that kind of side of myself to have more fun and for charity purposes. We had some great events that we put together. That was some fun times.
All right. So now my other son, my oldest, just graduated. So he's getting his degree next week in going to South Carolina. And now he's like, okay, I got a diploma. I got a degree. Now what? So what was your now what? Did you have a plan a year or two before you got out? Did you have a plan?
Oh yeah, I had a plan. My plan was to move to California and be an entrepreneur. And then I started reading books and just immersing myself with wealthy people. I had a job before I moved out there, and I had one of my first mentors out in Colorado who taught me a lot. Taught me about sales, first of all. Taught me how to run a business. Taught me like a lot of little things. This guy was like fantastic, one of the best salesmen I've ever met in my entire life. And I knew where I was going to live. I knew how I was going to do it. I was going to surround myself in a wealthy area. I knew the vehicles. I was going to get involved in real estate. And I just kind of knew where I was going, and boom, I just did it at the end of the day. I don't want to say it just happened. There's a lot of hard work, but I put myself in a position to succeed. And this is about 25 years later right now. But just, yeah, those were some important decisions. When you move from California, always it's like you want to have fun. If you're a young man, you kind of want to live in certain parts of town that are more fun than others. And we chose a specific neighborhood where wealthy people lived at, so we could learn through osmosis by talking to them. And, you know, the one of the crazy things, and this was a crazy thing back then for me to understand, was that the city we lived in, one of the popular hangout areas was this local coffee shop. I think they just shut it down this past year, unfortunately. And you didn't know if you're next to, back then it's a millionaire, today it's a billionaire. that someone wearing like a t-shirt and jeans and flip-flops was a millionaire or a business owner. And that was something that I had to kind of reframe my mindset and start, hey, you never know who you're going to run into. Treat with every person you come across with respect. Because a lot of people in that area was a kind of a local, at this point in time, like a surfer city. They were very casual in the way they approach life and how they wore things. And they had this vast amount of knowledge. So I had to change my frame of reference to not look at the fancy outfit, but just look at people and just engage in conversations as much as I could.
Now, you said the word "we" 3 times when you were talking about going to California. Who is we?
I'm so used to using these proper words. So part of that was me, myself. I always feel like a little bit of my success in life. I always feel like a little bit it's my mother. She's always pushed me. She faced a lot of adversity in her life. And I think she pushed me to move out there. And then I did find somebody who I was from my school who was moving out the same period of time. And we agreed on becoming roommates out there. And we had the same goals in life to live in the same area and to learn from the same people.
And the reason why I wanted to bring that up, because I already knew the answer, but it was because I've learned now hanging out with millionaires, billionaires, and successful people that if you want to run fast, run by yourself. If you want to run far, build a team. And you need to have those team with those like-minded people, because honestly, people like us, we're different. We see things that aren't there yet, and people just see things that are there. So we have a different mindset. So, like when you see walking around richer neighborhoods, when you were younger, I'm sure there are points where mentally somebody might have said, that's not for you. That's not for us. But I'm sure you had the mindset that you were thinking one day that can be me. That will be me. So how important is mindset? And you mentioned it earlier, which I love talking NLP and manifestation. How important is that manifestation, especially at a younger age?
It's all mindset. Yeah, young age, it's tough on a younger age, especially like when we grew up, because it was pre-internet, right? You didn't have a lot of information as you do today, but it's all mindset. I would say 100% mindset. Almost everything you do today, it's all about having the proper mindset. And today there's so many tools out there, which is phenomenal. Growing up, I wish I had like 1/10 of those tools, maybe like 1/100 of those tools. But I had that mindset. I always had that mindset to push myself, to learn more. I had almost this curiosity, like what is out there in the world, and not settling for what was given to me. What can I do? And I kept pushing myself again and again. And you hit obstacles all the time. And I don't know if people really understand like the East Coast, where we lived in the Triborough area. And growing up in a situation where I went to a lot of Catholic school, and how controlling they are, and how they want you to be a certain way. And they don't let you go outside the box to learn. And you're stuck in this box. It was hard to get outside that box. It was almost like this voice inside of me saying, you got to bust through this. And there's always obstacles. There's like always obstacles with them all the time. And if you look at my report cards, like all A's in theology, C's, and it's like I could not get a good grade in religion. I could not regurgitate what they wanted to do. But that is kind of it's just how that was. It's very institutionalized. Like, okay, you're born this way. This is what you're going to be for the rest of your life. And they're recommending you things, curriculums, schools that will keep you on that path. They don't want you to be great. They want you to kind of be a little sheep, right? I say at the end of the day, they want you to go on this path and be a nice little Catholic boy and do this, have a nice little family, have the picket fence. Yeah, I was like, no way, that's not me. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, and especially East Coast, people like to build you up and then break you down. Like, UConn lost two games in a row. Everybody's losing their mind. I'm like, but have you seen the career that these people have had? Just because UConn lost 2 games in a row, they're making a big deal about it. So I think a lot of times they like to build up their champions, and then when they start to falter a little bit, they try to tear them down a lot. You know what I mean?
I think that's a positive thing. I'm a big UConn fan. And that's a positive thing for them because they're going to three-peat. I'd rather have them face adversity now than at the end of the year when they got to get the seedings and they're in the tournaments, which make a difference. They want to win the whole thing. These pre-tournaments isn't a big deal for them. So I'm glad that happened to them. I like the coach. I'm glad he didn't go to the Lakers at the end of the day. That's not really that's a great organization, but the ownership's kind of a little suspect in their decisions. So I'm really fortunate that I think that was a positive for them to happen because you get that adversity early on. It's a whole new team, especially in college sports. Every year now with the NIL, they're losing everybody, right? It's just big turnover. So I think that's a big positive. And you can't look at that, hey, the school lost, but these kids, it's their first year as a starting five. They have a fresh starting five. They need to go through adversity to be like the past two champions.
Yep, man. Now I'm a Lakers fan since I've been a little boy. I'm a Showtime Lakers fan, so I'm hating life right now. I think that management, all the way from the owner all the way down to the manager, they all got to go and start fresh. Just start over again. You know what I mean? So when you get out of college and you move to the West Coast, what did you first start doing? Because a lot of people will move out there, and if you really don't know anybody, sometimes you got to start at the bottom rung. So what did you do when you got out to the West Coast?
Yeah, there's a bottom, and I was below the bottom, right? At the end of the day. So move out there, happy as heck. I had a Jeep Wrangler at the time. I stuffed it with as much stuff as I could fit in there. And then I went to get a trailer, and the U-Haul was like, hey, you can't get a trailer because you have a soft top, a rag top. You only get a trailer if you have a hard top. I'm like, oh, okay. So I only fit up, I couldn't fit all my stuff. So I just left it there. And then I'm driving across the country, and then my soft top flies off in the middle of the night. And so I lose another third of my stuff. But I get out to California. I'm happy as a pig in a blanket. And I turn my car off, and it broke down. It completely just breaks right there when I arrive. So I burnt my ships when I went out there. Literally, I burnt my ships. There's no turning around. And I'm like, this is great. I'm going to get myself an odd job and just start learning. And so I just went there, jumped around to find a couple odd jobs, and eventually found a couple, right? And it took me about a year to really find my footings. And then as soon as I got that year passed by, I started kind of looking out for mentors, and they kind of found me because they saw me like working my ass off doing these menial tasks, and they knew I had some things inside of myself, and they started sharing with me how they became successful and planting those seeds for what I do today. And that was the biggest, I would say, lesson I learned is no matter what you do in life, do your best and have a positive attitude. You will be noticed. And if I didn't do my best at those menial jobs I had my first year, I wouldn't have been noticed by the people who became my mentors to teach me what I know today at 23, 24 years old. And I shouldn't have learned that stuff until later in life. And so they did. They shared a lot with me, and I appreciate that.
And like I tell my kids, I got 3 kids, and I tell you can drop me in any town, any city. I'll have a job within an hour. I'll have an apartment within a week. I'll survive because I know if you know how to hustle and grind and be ethical, you can't lose. You cannot lose. But I wanted to talk about that, because a lot of people, like my dad came from Italy, came from Sicily, didn't speak the language. He got here, worked 2 jobs, bought 2 houses cash because he was a hustler and a grinder. But he always told me that the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. And that's something I try to do today. I try to be cognizant of everything I do. So even if it's the smallest thing, I want to make sure I do it to my best of my ability. So how important it is because the little things add up to the big things. So how important are the little things?
It's really important. And you got me thinking of like, where was that ingrained in my head? And I think it came from the hard work and efforts of working class parents. They always worked hard. And then the competitive nature of being good. I always wanted to do well at something to get that recognition. So that sat with me as like, hey, the hard work is fine at the end of the day. It's easy for me to do. And I'm just going to have a pleasant attitude at the same time by doing it. It's just something that I'm not sure where it was ingrained in me, but it was ingrained at an early age. I'm pretty sure through my parents and my surroundings. And just even in my high school was tough because you had a test to get into the high school, right? Everyone played sports. So it's just having that upbringing and that kind of going through that motions again, that resilience of kind of competing with everyone else. And it's very, very important. And I kind of live by like 4 things, like always do your best. Don't take anything personally, be impeccable with your word, and don't make assumptions. And that's from a book I read called The 4 Agreements. And so basic. Yes. Don Miguel Ruiz. Yeah, I met him once. He's a great guy. And that is the essence. If you could do those 4 things, you'll be recognized. And it's like your job today, and maybe I'm a little old fashioned, is like, it's not necessarily your job tomorrow, but you're learning a lot in that process. You're learning about yourself. You might learn about where you want to be next. That's why I felt a little bit back the East Coast. They kind of want to stick you in a bucket and you stay in this bucket for the next 50 years, right? So I knew how to bust through that. And that's what I did. I just said, hey, whatever I'm going to do, I'm competitive. I want to be good at it at the end of the day. And I know I something inside of myself wasn't like a voice, almost like an inner voice saying, hey, you will meet the people. And to meet the people, here's the job today. You got to excel at first.
And I agree 100%. Now, for me, and this is I'm speaking on the stage next week, and I'm talking about mentorship, how important mentors are. Like for me, if anybody's ready, sees up above in my whole new book that I just wrote, the whole back cover is written by Mr. John Lee Dumas, Entrepreneurs on Fire, and he's my one of my mentors. But in order for him to mentor me, I had to humble myself and say, know what I know, John. I don't know what you know. Will you please teach me, Mr. Miyagi? And I actually just studied at his feet and trying to learn everything. But I was humble enough to say, I need help. And I see a lot of guys and girls in business, they're struggling, but they're afraid to ask for help. So how important is mentorship? Because you mentioned it earlier.
It's really important. So where are you in life? What's your station? Where are you in your own journey, right? So younger, this was fantastic for me. I met the people for what I'm doing today. That was great. And then as I evolved, more mentors evolved in my life, appeared. So when the student is ready, the master will appear. It was funny because I just changed like CrossFit coaches this last week. And I have a newer one today. And I'm like, hey, I really want to compete in the games. I'm 51 years old. I'm really fit. I want to do the master stuff. So I had to get a new coach because I'm ready for that next challenge. I needed some more structure, work on my weaknesses. And we just started doing things actually yesterday, Monday, whatever day today is, a couple of days ago, and doing that. And so that just appeared in my life at this age, right? So it's like they're always appearing. They're around you everywhere. I have a coach I use too, who's a prominent influencer as a coach, teaching me stuff on how to brand yourself as a CEO. His name's Ty Lopez. And so he's one of my coaches right now, one of my mentors, sharing me what he knows. And he knows some of these things. I'm like, okay, you got to slow down. I can't incorporate all these things. That's going to take me 6 months to do it. He's fantastic. Just yesterday, he just gave me some little bits of wisdom. I'm like, ooh, that was interesting. And so I think that they appear in life too. As you grow, you're going to go through a different type of mentors. It's just a natural process. So just for people listening, it's not like, it's great that if you had a mentor, maybe when you're younger and they stick with you forever. I do have one of those, but most likely you're going to evolve out of your mentors and put yourself in a position to meet the ones where you are in your journey.
Yeah. And, sometimes like I love the quote. Now I'm a 9th grade dropout, Craig. And I dropped out at 19. I'm 9th grade. I don't even have a high school diploma. But I've read over 6,000 books, and I got 18 books going plus 2 audio books. So I get the quotes all confused, but yeah, I love the quote that get comfortable being uncomfortable. Like I'm coaching a friend of mine. I'm coaching him to have his own podcast, and he's deaf and blind. So I had to step back and be like, wait a minute, how do I teach somebody to be a profitable podcaster if they're deaf and blind? So I kind of like, I had to step out and say, okay, I really got to step into this to learn it. So I had to be uncomfortable, or else I could have just said, sorry, I can't help you. So how important is it to get comfortable being uncomfortable?
Yeah, that's where the growth happens. Being comfortable with the uncomfortable. That is a prerequisite, because our natural inclination is, when we feel that anxiety, is to run away from it, right? So what we have to do is we have to lean into it. That's where the growth comes in. So right away, fight or flight syndrome, you want to run away from it. But if you run away from it, you're not going to get that growth. So you have to lean into it. And I call it embrace the suck. And so you got to embrace it. It sucks. It's going to suck. Lean into it. And that's where you get the growth. And we're talking mental, physical, spiritual, all those types of growth. Everything in life deals with that. And that's not that like last 10%, right? You got to lean into that and push yourself that extra 10%. And I noticed that actually with one of my kids, I could tell when they hit that moment of when they're going to get that uncomfortable space. And I taught her, at the end of the day, I taught her some breath work. I said, when you get that anxiety feeling, I want you to do breath work. And I went to her school one day, and I see her teacher goes to me, when her name's Brooklyn, when Brooklyn's getting a little anxiety built up, she started breathing. I asked her, where did you learn that? And said, from my dad. So that was one of the proudest moments I've ever had in life, is my own daughter taking my techniques at 7 years old, is using that technique. So she's trying to teach her to get comfortable with that space.
And sometimes it's not only, sometimes you don't have to put in more work. You have to put in more quality work. Like for me, my goal, this year we took 6 vacations this year. My goal next year is to be off for 180 days, like Mr. Dan Sullivan taught me. But now I also know when I'm working. I'm not looking at cat videos on TikTok. I'm that guy that's like, okay, here I am. Instead of, somebody might be doing work clocked in for an hour, but they get 20 minutes of work done. If I can get that focus time, and I just did a post about that today. I just interviewed an amazing young lady, Dani and Carcione, and she talked about focus, follow one course until successful. But, a lot of people, they say they're working, but they're not being productive. And there's a difference between being busy and being productive, right?
Yeah, that is something that, we could fool ourselves with. It's confronting the brutal facts, like Jim Collins' books, one Good to Great, the 4 prerequisites.
Oh,
yeah. You got to confront the brutal facts. And I like to meet with myself once a week and say, what did I actually get done this week? Oh, maybe I didn't get my goals done. So what could I do differently? And so I've kind of done that more on a daily basis lately. It's like, okay, what are my daily goals? What did I get done? What distracted me? How can I improve upon that? And then I iterate that again and again and again and again to really find my zone. Hey, what puts me in a zone? How do I need to focus more? What can I do? What's distracting me? What am I working on at the end of the day? Are these menial tasks I could delegate to somebody else? And that sounds simple. Can I delegate to somebody else? All right. How many of us are really good at delegating? Let's be honest with ourselves, right? Mm-hmm. So that's a whole nother skill set that needs to be developed. Like you said earlier, it's like surround yourself with the right people. That's building a team, and you have to make sure that your team, you can do that so you can focus on the right things for yourself to move the needle forward.
And unfortunately, especially young entrepreneurs, they want to be the candlestick maker. They want to be the cook. They want to be the chef. They want to do it all. But like Gary Vee says, when I had lunch, I had the honor of having lunch with Gary, and something he told me, he said, Rich, just fuck what you're not good at, triple down on what you're good at, and then find somebody else that's great at what you suck at, and start a team. So, and I believe that if you're going to be successful in business, you have to have a team, and you can't do it all by yourself because you burn out eventually. Right?
Yeah, without a doubt. That's what's the saying? If you had a Michelin star restaurant and you owned it, right, and you have a Michelin star chef, what if you lost that chef? Would you go in the kitchen and learn how to cook? What would you do? And I just asked that question. You'd be amazed at how many people said they would start cooking. I'm like, that doesn't make sense. You're not a Michelin star chef. That's what you own, and that's the service your customers expect. So you gotta, what's the correct answer? Well, this is my answer would be, you gotta find yourself a Michelin star chef as fast as possible, because you don't have a business at the end of the day. You can't learn how to cook. But it's an interesting question. Ask that to people. Most people will say they'll learn how to cook.
Yeah, that's not going to work. But like I said, it's hard to start a business, because my perfect avatar, and the funny thing is, Craig, my perfect avatar, I actually named him Craig 6 years ago.
Nice.
My perfect avatar is a 45-year-old male, father of 3, veteran, and brand new business owner. And when we get out of the military and we're trying to figure out this crazy world called civilian life, a lot of veterans, we don't fit into the corporate structure, because number one, we go home when the job is done. If we clock in at 7, we're going to go home when the work is complete. And it drives a lot of veterans crazy, or first responders, because they're like, wait a minute, you guys are going home. We still got shit to do. It doesn't work that way. And also, being a veteran, we don't have a lot of fear. We're like, okay, you want me, like, if you're, I cut my teeth on knocking on doors, selling timeshares, selling caskets. That was I cut my teeth on. And the first teacher was like, here's your script. Go knock on 100 doors today. Then do it again tomorrow. Then do it again. So I think, I think a lot of people, for veterans, we don't fit into the perfect mold, but I think we fit into entrepreneurship really, really well. Have you talked to a lot of veteran entrepreneurs?
I have. We have a lot of military down here, so I see a lot of veterans, and I'm around a lot of Navy SEALs over here. So there's a lot of SEALs here, SEAL community. One is like, I actually work out next to SEALs. It's pretty cool, because the guy's going for buds. I got a group of guys training for buds right now. I'm training right next to them. It's kind of cool. And then I have the ones who've gotten out of service and that are starting companies. Made friends with a couple guys who are former SEALs running a coffee business called Trident Coffee. These are great guys.
Yep.
They're
known very
guys.
well. Yep.
Eric and those guys. So they're great. And then another guy doing the honors. What's it called? The honor is it Honor Academy? Joe Musselman. He's another a former military guy I know locally. Yep. Gives back to a lot, helps a lot of people out with their businesses. So yeah, kind of. I'm in that ecosystem down here. A little bit more military in San Diego, I'd say. My in-laws, father was a Master Chief, brother-in-law Master Chief, uncle was Special Forces. So all my wife's side. So yeah, it's pretty big military town out here. So I get to engage with them a lot and hear their stories and how they're doing.
So let's go back to, okay, you find some mentors, and like for me, I didn't really know about money. I was never raised, we never talked about it, but I picked up this little purple book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I've had them both on the show. But as I was reading this book, I was selling timeshare, and I actually had to have that dinner with the largest timeshare owner in Florida. And I'm like, Rich, what's the difference between you and the person that's picking up your dirty plates right now? He said, it's their vocabulary. And it kind of took me aback. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? He's like, listen to the way the average person talks, and then the way that somebody that's wealthy talks. It's totally, totally different. So what are your thoughts on that? And I'm sure you probably agree that a lot of it has to do with the mindset, because the way you talk, it comes from the mind. So talk about mindset, and then also talk about your vocabulary.
Yeah, I never thought about it in vocabulary. It is a mindset. You're just thinking about different things. Your just thought process difference, and then your words are going to be different. It's like having a can-do attitude. It's always coming with a solution to something at the end of the day. It's kind of looking strategically in the future, looking for opportunities, that especially with the markets and everything. Honestly, I liked it before the election than after the election because it was so chaotic. I like chaos. I see a lot of opportunity in chaos. Now it's like, oh, great, we're moving on. This is what's going to happen for the next 4 years. There's more certainty out there, right? I like it when there's a little uncertainty because there's more opportunities. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs, especially a lot of people who buy assets, are investors, are looking at things in contrarian sorts of ways. Is like, go where they're not, right? You invest when people aren't investing. General public kind of follows the herd mentality, and that's why they always get fooled at the end of the day, because they always go in too late because they're a little bit based on emotion. So they're based on the fear. Oh, the world's falling, let's not do anything. And that's actually when you should do something, right? Having the contrarian view of stuff. And that's the mindset of wealthy people. They're like, great, this is a great time. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's probably discounted assets for me to purchase. People are probably just getting rid of stuff because they're worrying about their day-to-day life, right? The Maslow's hierarchy. So if you're worried about putting food on your table, you might sell an asset really cheap just to do that. So that's how and they're patient. They're very patient with things. If you notice that, wealthy people are patient. They get a little less rattled in these downturns. They're like, just kind of, I use the word cool. They're kind of cool in these uncertain times. They know the long game and how it pays off. I think that's one of the biggest lessons I learned. And I got another Navy story. It's like I was talking to one of my mentors who was former Navy, moved out here when he was 19 from Brooklyn, New York, working class background. Now he's probably upper 70s, early 80s. And he bought some real estate in the 70s, the years I was born. And I'm having lunch with him 6 months ago. And he's like, Craig, I just sold something for 20 million bucks, but he had it since 1970. Right. And he bought it for like nothing. And he made this huge upside on it. He bought it for hundreds of thousands. And now he's selling it for 20 million. And the fact of the matter is he got to a place in life where he doesn't have to use these assets for cash flow. He could just sit on them, wait them out, and just sell them when he could take it the next level, is really tap into that appreciation. And I was super excited because I own a property like a mile away from his. So that was positive for me because he got a great number on it too. But that's the long game, being patient and doing this. And he's just understanding that and how he thinks and how he approaches things on a day-to-day basis on things like that. So it's just interesting. Like you said, it's mindset, then it becomes the vocabulary about it. The can-do attitude, playing the long game, being strategic, not getting rattled in these fluctuations in the market.
Yeah, and I've noticed, because then I started getting into studying millionaires and billionaires, and people like A.L. Williams, Sam Walton. These guys had birds in the back of their car, in the back of their truck. They're rednecks. And they're driving late model cars. They're not driving anything new. If they walked up to you, if you didn't know who they were, you probably wouldn't know who they were. And for me, I got slapped in the face one time, and not literally, but financially. I was working at a timeshare, and a gentleman walked in, and he had flip-flops on and long hair. And I'm like, oh, man. I'm like, this is going to be rough. I took him through the whole thing, like 20 minutes, we were done. I got to the table, and he's like, I want a whole year's of timeshare. I'm like, what? He's like, I want a whole year of timeshare. I'm going to give him out as gifts from my corporation that I own. I'm going to put it on my American Express Black Card, but I'm not going to sell it to you. I'm going to sell it to somebody else. And that was the day I, like you said earlier, don't misjudge anybody. And from that moment on, I never misjudge anybody, because I learned my lesson the hard way. So isn't it true that a lot of millionaires and wealthy people, they're not driving the Lambos? They're not. If you look at like Warren Buffett, if you look at his house, if you look at what he drives and where he goes for lunch every day, it would shock the shit out of you, him being one of the richest men in the world. So talk to us about that part of wealth.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I think it's okay to enjoy yourself somewhat, right? In some cases on doing things, but yeah, don't judge a book by its cover. Looking at those things, and a lot of, like you mentioned, I'm reading Sam Walton's book right now. How humble he is. He doesn't take any first class flights. It's always like work economy class. So I was amazed by that. Doesn't have a jet, and all those things, and how they appreciate hard work and humble beginnings and all that stuff. So that is something that I've been around a lot of, this old fashioned money that is kind of behind the scenes, that is more genuine in some cases, generational money too, and how they do things. They're not as flashy, right? And they have a lot of assets. And I think if you dug into like a lot of cities across the US, you could see who's actually owned the assets and businesses. You'll find the majority of wealth comes from people who act that way. It's not as flashy. It's just, we just get pushed all these algorithms now, and we see the same 5 people popping up in front of us all the time. It's always the same 5 too. If you always, everyone's, I don't know what it is. It's the same 5 people. It's like Bezos, Zuckerberg, Musk. There's a couple others in there that are always jumping up front every single day in the news. I just find that fascinating. So there is a little bit of misinformation out there. And at the end of the day, when you're building something too, if you're too much out there, it could be a distraction for you. And what I mean about that is you could attract some of the wrong people in your life, which would be a distraction, right? You want to be around more solid character people. In the world of flash, there's a lot of people come and go all the time, and that could be toxic and could prevent you from hitting your goals. So you said a lot with that, and I do believe in that. Humble backgrounds, being humble, not too flashy, being moderate. I do believe in, like, you should treat yourself once in a while to some things too, but not you're seeing a lot of these people just leveraging themselves with expensive cars and leases and stuff like that are a distraction.
So, because once you started seeing some success, and you alluded to it a little bit, a lot of people, including myself, I fell into the trap. Shiny object syndrome, looking at this, looking at that, and then you start to fail, or you sometimes you go down a real bad rabbit hole where you can get involved in some stuff. Once the money starts piling in, you start doing some really stupid stuff. So how did you not get caught up in that aspect of money?
Well, I did. I mean, I had some ups and downs in life, and I probably had less downs if during the uptime periods I put that money aside instead of spending the money, right? So you're spending money on trips and whatever when you're younger, and I could have had that grow a little bit more. So I learned a lot of lessons along the way on doing that stuff, and that's kind of like how you really, if I took a larger percentage, I look back and I'm doing pretty well, but I'm looking back. Of course, you're going to look in hindsight and say, hey, if I just saved more or invested more at that time period, where would I be today, right, than anything else? But what it is for everyone else, I think you just got to moderate it, right? What is the optimal amount to save and to invest, and what's the optimal amount to buy things with? And that's something that's just up to you personally. There's certain percentages, 30, 40%. If I could, it'd take 50% what I make and just put into growth investments. That's what I would love to do. That's what I strive to do. And if I could live off the rest. So I'm like, today I'm different than when I was younger. There's more opportunities to do this. But when I'm younger, if I could get that level where my cash flow is coming in and I have enough to live on, right? And I have enough to live on, enough to buy some nice items, and then I have a substantial amount to put away for growth. That's what I'd tell my 20-year-old self. It's like I'd break it down to 25% to live on, 25% to do whatever with, and 50% to save long-term. And just force myself to get to those income levels to live the quality of life I'd want to do. That's what just I would do. And I have that hustle to get there with income. And that rolls into, we're talking about entrepreneurship, building businesses. I also like to drill it down to someone, well, how could I attain these things? I always drop down to the next level. Well, get a commission-based job. There's a lot of commission-based jobs out there that have uncapped amounts of commissions you can make. And there is stuff out there, and just dive into that where there's no cap. You control your own destiny. What's better than that? So I know a lot of people maybe frown upon sales, but sales, if you're good at it, you can make a lot of money. And like we were just talking before, to get good at sales, you could develop those skills. And it starts here. Again, it starts in your mind, right? You need to have the confidence in yourself. And then you have to have the resilience, like you said. You have to, because you're going to get knocked down. You're going to face rejection 1,000 times. You got to get up each day with a smile. And I always tell my people that the number one thing in sales, this was yesterday, I was interviewing some people. I said, what's the number one thing in sales? What makes you successful? No one got it. I was like, it's confidence. It's like, once you're not confident on the phone, boom, that's it. You lost the sale. And that's like almost going back to what you and I said, confidence with everything in life. And going back to the mindset, starts with the mindset. So you can see how all these things roll back into the mindset and having confidence in yourself. You have that ability. Everyone has the ability to get a sales job today and make an unlimited amount of cash flow so you can do the next thing. So that's what I just say to people. It's just, at the end of the day, you got to look at yourself in the mirror and, what's holding you back? It's usually just yourself.
And I agree. And I was just thinking about, talking about there's hard skills and then there's soft skills. A lot of people, they work on their hard skills, but they really don't work on their soft skills. And the reason why I was so successful, because I care about people. That's the reason why I outsold everybody, because if you were sitting in front of me, I wanted to know what your needs were, how I can help you with your pain points. Not what I'm trying to sell you, but what do you need? And even when I was with GNC, we actually took a $400,000 store a year, took it to 1.4 million in 3 years, because I just started caring about people. And that's something that Gary said, one of the best business strategies you can ever have is care. So how important is empathy and actually caring about people in sales?
Oh, it's once you have that, you have everything. So I'm trying to put a word to it. It's like, what do you have? If you're selling a product that people could benefit from, that gets the emotion into it. Gets one that you're believing into it. It gets your confidence going up again, right? And so you get more sales. But it just, at the end of the day, if you're serving people, that's what it's all about. How do you serve other people? And then for me, it's like what I do is a lot of it comes from my childhood. We weren't served as a middle class, working class family. Now I get to do something where I could help other working class, middle class families. It's like the perfect career to do at the end of the day, giving back to other people what I learned along the way. It's like always about service. At the end of the day, it's about service. How can you serve other people? And I just talked about we talked about sales jobs. Right? You want to pick the one where you can serve other people. You'll do a better job at it, right? You'll do a better job at it. It's easier to do. It's not that hard. You're offering someone a benefit. You're not selling to someone. You're offering them something. There's a big difference. Whereas, there's a lot of sales jobs which are not the best, right? People don't need everything, but that's the secret sauce right there. It's like how, not only in sales, but even building a business. How can you do something that serves other people? How does it benefit them in their lives?
And you mentioned something and I think it's really important, is to believe in your product, first of all. Like for me, I went to go buy my car for my son. And I got to the dealership. I knew what my credit was. I knew how much I had to spend. And the guy came out to me, and I'm like, and it's a Kia deal. It was a Kia dealership. I was looking at some of the nice Kias out there, the Stingers. And I said, he's like, what do you want? I'm like, this is what I want. This is what I can pay. Is my credit score, blah, blah, blah. And then he's like, all right, let's go do the paperwork. I'm like, all right, let me see your keys. He's like, what? I'm like, let me see your keys. Oh, you drive a Honda, huh? You're working at a Kia dealership? Nah. Next. I went through 3 guys before a guy actually owned a Kia, and that's the guy I bought it from. And he told me he had so many sales, because when somebody would say, I love the car and everything, but why should I buy it? And he had reached back and went, click, click. He said, because I own one. I believe in it that much. So how important it is to believe in whatever you're selling.
Extremely important. Extremely important. Yeah. That is everything. Yeah. I mean, you shouldn't, if you don't believe in the product, then you shouldn't be there. I mean, the other day I was talking to some people, this is a vendor having a conversation. They were trying to blame like their boss. And I said, I go, you live in a free world. If your boss is a jerk, I'll just use the word jerk, use a different word in the conversation. Boss is a jerk. I was like, then you leave. I was like, there's plenty of jobs out there. I'm hiring. I was like, you don't have to work for a jerk. I was like, you don't have to. Same thing. You don't have to sell a product that's not ethical. There's plenty
like
of
I'm going, like I got to go buy a couple phones for Christmas. And when I go into the Verizon dealer, I automatically just look at the person's phone. I'm like, if you don't even have a Verizon phone, then how can you even know when I say, because you don't really know a pain point unless, like, I know when I didn't sell any timeshare for the first 6 months because I absolutely sucked. Until my manager said, well, why don't you buy one and go on a mini vacation. I bought one, went on a mini vacation, and I sold 5 the first week. Because when somebody would say, well, I can't afford it, I was like, you know what? I couldn't afford it either. But to see my kids' faces looking at the mouse in Disney, it was worth it all. So I was able to sell more because I actually owned the product. You know what I mean? And once somebody knows, okay, he knows how I feel. So when it comes to getting that credit card, if you don't own it, you're gonna be like, yeah, I guess I couldn't afford it either. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Have you talked to business owners like that where they're like they think that, well, that person can't afford it even though they can't afford it?
Yeah, you come across that quite often. I'm trying to figure out the last time I came across it, but you do come across it often. Service-based industry, I think you come across it a lot, right? Definitely in a service-based industry, I feel like you come across that all the time. People pushing products down that they don't even believe in the products at the end of the day. So how can you be pushing me this product, right? You don't have it, you don't use it, whatever it is, right? Use your imagination of what that is. So it's just at the end of the day, some of us, yeah, I think that's a great selling point. It's like if you believe in the product yourself, you'd be investing in the product or you'd have that product yourself. I don't see how you could sell a product. Yeah, maybe in some cases, maybe you can't afford the product, right? That's okay. That's consideration, but most products probably are you can afford. And you should, I mean, if we're talking about you as a person selling that product, you got to look at yourself. You're not going to be successful at that. I'd look for something else. That's what I would do. And you would do. That's why we are where we are today, because we understand ourselves of the psychologies behind this. A lot of people don't understand that. And a lot of people are scared at the end of the day. They're scared to move on from their job. They're just scared. Yeah. They don't have that courage to move on from that.
And I tell people, if you're going to sponsor my show, if I don't use the product, you're not going to sponsor the show. Like, I drink Celsius, not just because they sponsor me, but because I actually like it. Everything, all my sponsors, I use their products. I'm in recovery 35 years. I'm going on 36 next month. I can't say, hey guys, check out my new vodka that is sponsoring the show or edibles. I'm like, I can't do that because if I don't use it, I can't honestly say, yeah, it's good for you or it tastes great or whatever. And I think that when a person's like that, you kind of trust them a little bit more because they're just not trying to hawk shit.
I think that was in the news. Some celebrity was trying to push some alcoholic beverage and they don't drink alcohol. And it was just, it wasn't jiving, right? It was, yeah, that's the thing. Well, great. Gee, I gave up drinking like 4 years ago myself, randomly, just for no reason. I just gave it up. But yeah, that's a big thing to do. So very, very props to you, Richard, for doing that. It's not an easy thing to do.
So let's talk about, we're in a very turbulent time, like you just said. I was at my friend's store the day after the election, and he was getting bulk orders. He's like, I haven't seen bulk orders in 4 years. Now all of a sudden, the next day, he's getting a bunch of bulk orders. So we're kind of going to be, like you said, in a big influx. Now, when I wrote this down, and I couldn't believe that when you said, when I read, because I do all my due diligence, you've raised over $1 billion in capital. That money, when I was not doing what I'm doing now, that seemed so like I couldn't even fathom what that even looks like. So how did you get so successful? I mean, obviously you put in the time, you put in the reps, like Ed Milet said, you put in the reps, but there's a difference between the M word and the B word. there's a difference between little and the big B.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, 25 years, and started with like Monopoly, if I could use that as a reference nowadays, houses and then hotels, right? So you started small, doing smaller ones, then I got some volume in, and then I went to larger transaction sizes, mixtures of debt and equity. You just build it up over time, 25 years plus. So it's really not, I mean, I'm not going to say you can't do that real quickly, right? You could go into those transactions, most likely broker those deals. But you can, I mean, if you grew up and you're with contacts and better in oil, right? You might be able to get there more quickly than other people. The big thing I would say is it's the volume of retail investors I've had the privilege to serve and raise capital from and understand from all walks of life and how that works and how I bucketed raising capital depending on who you are, right, and your needs and how to do it. And so I kind of got some courses I'm putting out there, and I break it down to 5 components, and always start with like, hey, yourself, right? The first person you might go to is yourself, and maybe you get a loan or something from a bank. The second one would be, your friends and family, which is a very tough one. Most people go there right away. It's not really a good one. It has its pros and cons.
Nope.
So there's a reason why people call it fools and family, right? Third one is the general public. I call it the retail investor. That is about 120 million people in the US. That is a great audience. Next one's a more sophisticated professional investor. There's people who will go out and find you, but they'll look at 10 deals at the same time, and they will negotiate for the best interests of themselves. It's not really win-win. It's win for them, and for you, you get something out of it, which is an angle to take because you can build a track record with that, and that's always a good thing. Next step is your institutional investors, your private funds, your hedge funds, your institutions, your banks, right? And that's a different game in itself too. That's kind of getting to know them and earning their business through the means of how you play that game, because each one has a different game to do. The friends and family one, yeah, I mean, that's a tough one, right? But the general public is one that if you could really, if you're good at what you're doing and you know how to pitch well, you have the confidence, you're really going to deliver a result at the end of the day, that's unlimited supply right there. It's 120 million people out there, and there's trillions of dollars that you could access there. That is something that I pride myself on, being able to do it and how to do it. Again, it starts with, hey, do you have a good plan? Is it really going to work at the end of the day? Can you deliver? So that's great. But also, do you know how to build relationships? Because you have to build the right relationships. And then how do you know how to package that together and pitch your product? With AI, it's so easy to put together a pitch deck nowadays. It's crazy fast, but you still need to present it. At the end of the day, they're not just investing in your product. They're investing in you. They're investing in your relentlessness to pursue your vision, right? Because they're backing that money, not into the product, but you yourself doing it. So learning that, and I've seen this all the time, and even myself was guilty. I used to lead with education so much in the process. So now it's like, no, I'll just, oh yeah, it's Craig. You want to do it or not? Okay, thanks. But it's like more like that than anything else on that, because you put your name to it at the end of the day. So, I mean, that's just some of the examples of what I've done over the years to kind of master that skill set. And it can be learned. It can be developed. There's no matter where you are in life, there is a way to do it. I did it. I didn't come from anything. My parents were working class. How did I learn this?
But, it's something I think we need to talk about is And by the way, Craig, I just want to say thank you. I'm so humbled and grateful just to be able to hang out with you today. And I just wanted to say thank you. But, let's talk about relationships, because if I didn't have a relationship with Wyatt, I wouldn't have a relationship with you. And then hopefully we're going to build a generational relationships, and hopefully I can become friends with your friends. But if I didn't procure and have and nurture that relationship with Wyatt, I wouldn't have a relationship with you. So how important is it to, even if you're at the lowest rung, to start building the relationships? Because as you get more relationships, you might be on the golf course one day and you might hear, "Oh, Craig, I need somebody to help me with this deal. You help Frank. He talked to me about you." And then you're getting that deal done. And then somebody from the next rung is going to hear about you. And then you're moving back up. But now you've had relationships with 3 different people. So how important is the soft skills of building real relationships?
I would say it is one of the top things that you have to do. Let's talk about entrepreneurship. You need to build the necessary relationships to be successful. It's just the 101. It's the first step in the process. Almost the first step. Going back to confidence is the first step. You got to get your shit together, right? And then you need to build the relationships. It's just so invaluable. We just talked about this. The whole conversation is about building relationships, mentors and school and learning, and where that all comes from. And you find the right mentor. Why pay? What's the going rate for school? I got 3 young kids. I better figure this out. And do you want to invest in that, or do you want to give that into real life situations nowadays? You have these definite, I call these business decisions to make. So if you want, I'm not against school. I love the experience, but that could be 4 years. You could be doing something else, right? Yeah. And so, and the money you invested in, input versus output, are they really getting education to be successful in today's world? And those are just, I'm going to throw those questions out there. I do believe going to school, though, is you have the opportunity to build networks. So if you go to the right schools and you go and you use it the right way, you could come out of that with education and the right relationships, right? So we might have to rethink how we view things, because just relationship building is super important for anything. Opens up so many doors.
And you mentioned when we first started talking, we were talking about being in proximity of people. Like, I think in May or June, I'm going to be speaking at a Richard Branson event. And the only reason I got invited to speak is because I've already had 4 of the 5 guests on my show that know Richard. And they're like, yeah, you got to bring him out to speak with us. But if I didn't have those 4 people that I've already had on the show and talk to on a regular basis, there's no way I'd be able to be at a Richard Branson event. So talk about, because I do believe in the power of the 5. Some people call it woo-woo. I think it is, because I tell everybody, listen, I got a beautiful wife. I got 3 beautiful kids. But I know that if I'm hanging out at the titty bar with 5 guys that are about to get divorced, I'm going to be number 6. But if I'm hanging with 5 guys that are talking success, talking business, loving their wives, loving on their children, and loving on their family, I'm going to be the 6th person that's going to be successful. So how important do you think is the 5?
It's really important. It's super important. And constantly, like you said, you're going to have to iterate that, because as you move up and your goals change, you're going to might surpass some of them. So it's really, you need to put that effort into it. The pandemic was a tough time period for me personally, because the way I like to strengthen relationships is face-to-face meetings. Now I'm stuck behind a computer monitor, and I'm like, what the heck? And for me, I felt like that wasn't me. And I had to come out of that and change myself, be my authentic version, and be face-to-face with people. That's how I kind of do things. And this year's I've been traveling all over the place, meeting with people, and I'm making that it's one of my things I'm focused on, is building relationships, going to in-person events at least once a month, go 12 events per year. That's why I attend. I've also put down on my to-do list, hey, do I speak at an event once a month? So really putting my position to meet more people, to reiterate my top 5 again and again. And it does change. And sometimes we just grow out of people. Sometimes people become stagnant and there's not much you can do. They just become, they're stagnant. And you're just like, okay, maybe you had this 5-person group you met with once a week and one person just didn't grow or made some decision that was not more a lateral move, now a forward move. And, you have to move on from that person. Sometimes you gotta be selfish in that too. And that's okay. That's a fair thing. You're being authentic to yourself. If you're not moving on, then you're lying. Right. And so if you're lying to yourself, right, you want to be authentic to yourself. You want to be who you are, true to yourself.
And, and I believe that's addition by subtraction. Sometimes you have to say, okay, well, hey, I like hanging out with you, but to where I want to go, I can't get there with you hanging out. You can't, we don't fit together. We're still friends. If you need me, I still got you, but we're not going to be hanging out as much. But let me ask you about, this is a teaching podcast, and I know there's a lot of guys out there that are like, all right, give me the meat, and I want the meat. So if there's a military personnel about to get out of the military, they want to get into entrepreneurship, what would be your top 3 pieces of advice to get so they can actually get started, maybe even before they get out of the military?
Top 3 pieces of advice. Be generalized with them. One, I think we already said, it's a mindset, right? So you have to get that mindset that you have to move forward all the time. So to develop the mindset is you have to be resilient. You have to overcome obstacles. I think number 2, and this is just very, very high level. You want to be an entrepreneur is just immerse yourself into just studying everything until you figure out what you want to do. So we're talking about most time, this is not, don't have a specific goal here. So just coming out, I want to be an entrepreneur. There's so many tools nowadays. You can learn so much. And then the big thing is like, start building a relationship, start attending groups, entrepreneurship meetings, just immerse yourself into a network, just learn from people. So you're going to learn a lot online, a lot in books, but you learn more from people. Maybe you come across someone who wants to be your mentor. Maybe you come across someone with something you want to teach, mention something that you didn't know existed before. It's amazing opportunities nowadays. So I think it's easier. I think people think it's harder, but I think it's easier. I don't know. Of course I'm going to say it's easier, but I think a lot of people are just in their own head and they got it. And that's where it kind of starts with, again, your mindset. You're in your head. I think there's more tools now than ever. I think people are genuinely like to give back and share stories. I mean, look how many podcasts are out there, right? People want to give all the time. It's there. It's up to you to grab it. So, yeah.
And for veterans, and guys, if you're out there listening, if you're a veteran or if you're active duty military, you get free LinkedIn Premium. So you can actually, before you get out, you can get free LinkedIn Premium. You can start connecting with everybody and start taking college level courses for free if you're a veteran or you're just if you're still in the military. So I would definitely check that out. And I love LinkedIn. I think we're now connected on LinkedIn. I'm not even on many more social. I mean, I still check out Instagram and TikTok, but I'm more on LinkedIn because I learn so much every day just by going on LinkedIn, and you don't have a lot of the political bullshit either. So what do you got coming up? What's new with you? You said you go to like 12 events a year. What do you got coming up? And like I tell everybody, guys, you got to check out his Instagram and his TikToks. They're fire. I've been binge watching them for like the last week. As soon as I knew you were coming on, I absolutely love them. So what do you got going on, King Craig?
Yeah, I am really leaning into and building my brand, my CEO brand, doing a lot of media stuff. Got a great media team I'm working with. So very excited about that. In January, I launched my courses on how to raise capital. Excited about that. Get to give back to people, teach them, customize them, which is the big thing, is really getting to learn what's going to work for you. So I have online courses that are affordable to everyone, right? And then I have a mid-tier and then a higher tier for the personal coaching. And that's where we could sit down and customize you based on who you are. And I get to know you. So it's easier to kind of give you direction when I get to know someone. It takes a few months to do that. And the big thing out there is my flagship company, Diversity Fund, is really launching us into $1 billion company, building out the technology there. It's just fascinating using AI and across a business and building a team that has a cause, and that cause is tried and true for me. It's like I'm opening up private investing for everyone, something that my parents and family never had an opportunity for. Now I can give back to people. Of course, you come from any walks of life. We have different plans for everyone, starting to educate people a little bit more about it. That is probably one of the things I learned the most about being in the financial industry is the education levels is very lacking. And I'm not even sure it's education levels. The discipline is lacking across that. And really to give back to people with that. So those are my three main things that I'll be working on over the next few months and into 2025.
And I talk to a lot of business owners and I say, are you on TikTok? Are you on Instagram? Oh, no, those are just for the kids. And I'm like, bro, you're leaving so much money on the table. Or I'll ask them, because I had a meeting with Gary, and it was just when we was getting into NFTs, AI, and we were sitting down, and I went into the wormhole with AI. I think I've probably spent about 10,000 hours just reading about AI, and I use it every day now. But a lot of people I ask, do you use AI for your company? And they're like, no. And I'm like, man, you're gonna get run over, or you're gonna get run out of town if you're not using these things now, not tomorrow, now.
Yeah,
right.
I had my 9-year-old daughter at my office yesterday. I was like, "Did you bring your math homework?" She's like, "No." I was like, "Jump in Dad's lap." I was like, "Go to chat." I'm like, "Create a math homework for my 9-year-old daughter." Spit it out, press printer. She wasn't too happy about it, but I had some homework for her, and it was that easy. It took like a minute to get it out to her and put it in her hands. Okay, here's your math equations. Here you go. So even our day-to-day lives, that was simple for me to do. It's like, hey, no excuse. So it's crazy how you can apply it to almost everything. And that's the big thing. And that's the message I would share with people. If you're not using AI, you're almost too far behind. You have to use it. You're already behind. And it's got to be like, getting up and getting a cup of coffee in the morning from the coffee machine. So you got to when you log on your computer, are you naturally going to AI right away? You need to develop that mindset. You have to get going. If not, you're behind. You're already behind. And you need to use it because we're only going to select people in the workforce who know how to use AI sooner or later. You're going to lose out jobs. You can't fake it. You'll know right away. You have to learn that. The second thing is if you're an entrepreneur, you have to learn about branding because it's impossible to create a brand. So I always say like Robinhood spent $1 billion to build a brand, right? Are you going to be able to spend $1 billion to build a brand? It's not going to happen. So you have to figure out how to do it. Use social media. It's a very affordable tool. Like we said, you get premium for free if you're military. And the last thing you got to start learning about systems and processes. And that's how you scale. And so you need to lean into that and learn that. And that's the thing that a lot of the schools don't really teach you that stuff. They don't teach you these systems and processes around building businesses. So, I mean, those are the things that if you're an entrepreneur today or a small business owner, you need to do now or it's too late. You need now. It's going to be, we have this window is shrinking with this new administration. A lot of stuff will be deregulated. Maybe there's more liquidity. Maybe the market goes up. So it's going to be good opportunity, but the opportunities are there today. You need to get ahead today, not tomorrow. Don't wait for things to kind of get settled down. That's too late. You got to get moving right now. Yeah. Unfortunately, guys, enjoy the holidays, but I'll be working. So
yeah, me too. And guys, I want to let you know that there's a new app out there. It's called Blue Sky. If you get a chance, check them out. It's a brand new social media app. I just got on yesterday, and I connected with Jelly Roll. I connected with John Bon Jovi. So, guys, if you get a chance to check out this app, it's called Blue Sky. I got nothing involved in it, but I go where the eyes are. And I think if things start moving, I start moving with them. So, guys, if you get a chance, always when I go onto my social app every morning, I always look what is the top 10 social media platforms, and they change. So sometimes something might come up. If you're first on it, you might be able to hit away for a little bit. You know what I mean?
It's awesome.
Craig, so I just want to say thank you, brother. So where can we find you? But well, I know you said you're on Instagram. You're on TikTok. What is your handles, and how do we find you, and how do we get in your system, and how do we get in your ecosystem?
Yeah, I mean, simple: Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, LinkedIn. I got CXC, that's behind me, Cecilio. You can find me, CXC Cecilio. Also, www.diversifund.com is my core business. You can check out what we're doing, open up private markets to the everyday investor as well there.
So January, first week of January, you said you're launching brand new courses?
Yeah, in January. Yeah, the courses have been made. Going to launch in January. Ready to go.
I love it, and hopefully I'll be able to take advantage because I'm always looking to learn. I'm a lifetime learner because I believe learners are earners, right? And readers are leaders. So I want to be one of them. Craig, my brother, this has been such a pleasure and an honor. Thank you, my friend.
Awesome, Richard. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Yep, and I want to thank Wyatt. Thank you so much, brother. Thank you for actually putting us together. Thank you for Celsius Energy. And guys, the reason I wear this shirt, it says I win. Because if you guys are listening to this show, when you wake up in the morning, you're no longer a victim of your past. You're a victor of your present and your future. And you guys are winners for showing up every day. I love you guys. And remember, vertical momentum, the only way to go is up. I love you guys. Have an amazing day. Craig, my brother, have a happy Thanksgiving.
You too. Appreciate it.